Hello everyone, this is Vet Talk and I'm your host Sergeant Gonzalo Duran. Today's honored guest is Daniel Jorge. Daniel, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, as we can see, you're a fellow veteran.
Yes.
Would you tell everybody a little bit about your background in the military and yourself?
I served 32 years, 29 Air Force, 3 Army. My whole career between the Army and Air Force was in logistics. But in the 29 years with the Air Force, I served 25 years in air transportation. Okay, shipping cargo and troops all over the world. So I have a whole lot of affiliations with all 5 branches, you know, from having to ship that cargo all over the world along with the troops.
Of course. Now, where are you native from?
My parents are originally from Puerto Rico, okay, but I was born and raised in New York City.
And how did you land in the Bronx?
We used to live in Spanish Harlem.
Oh,
okay,
nice.
110th and Madison, New York Housing Authority building, and now it's called Tito Puente Way.
Okay, I've been there. Yeah.
Yes. So we moved to the Bronx in, I think it was in the summer of 2011. The summer of 1971, 72.
And now, would you give us a little bit of information on what you've done since leaving the military?
Well, it's, you know, aside from some of the things I have to deal with the Veterans Administration or what have you, but I have connected with, you know, many veteran service organizations, DAV, Devil Dog Incorporated, of course, and I've been able to obtain benefits for, you know, my sacrifice in Afghanistan, Iraq, and it's been a case of reinventing myself once I retired. In January 2012 is when I retired from the Air Force. So I've had to go through the process of reinventing myself and find new ways to serve the community.
Well, I'm gonna interject a little bit because I know you're being a little humble today. So I'm gonna throw some stuff out there. You know, when we started Devil Dog, it was literally just over like 10 years ago, 11 years ago. You were one of the first individuals that came up. I know you love what we were doing, and since then, you know, I've seen you grow onto different things. All the organizations that you help, people that you mentor, participation, volunteer, this and that. You know, it's seen, it's appreciated. You've been recognized in different ways. You know, I remember one of the best articles I read about you. I don't remember the wording too much, but I remember the featured photo was you saluting in your camis. And I'm like, a lot of us go different routes. Some of us go, you know, walk around in our, still walking around in our camis. Some people walk like, some people like me, and you know, people have questioned this, you know, why I'm not wearing the hat or why I'm not projecting it too much. I'm like, in my mind, I've never really left it because I spent my whole adult life has been military, serving my country, serving my community. So, you know, when I look at what you've done, what you're doing, and I'm like, I want to be halfway there. I'm not there yet. You know, maybe in like 5 more years, I might wear the cap. You know, Iraq veteran. But you know, I rock the Devil Dog wear and Semper Fi clothing and stuff like that. You know, so that's my way. I know I still wear my dog chains right in here. Oh, hope I didn't hit the mic. You know, I got my dog chains, and I represent myself when I walk around as doing my best as a Marine. You know, so that people was like, oh, that's a Marine right there. That's that guy right there, which I've seen from you. And then today specifically, you're wearing all red. Could you tell the audience a little bit about that?
I wear all red ordinarily on this day, on Friday, because it's something that that was developed, I say, about 12, 13 years ago by a Marine Corps veteran. You know, and Red Fridays are considered remember everyone deployed. To take time out to think about the troops still out there. You know, and not only in Iraq or Afghanistan, we have no one in Afghanistan, but we do have troops in Iraq and Syria and places like that. But it's also those that are serving in Germany and South Korea and stuff like that. You know, those are Americans, they're not originally from those countries. So yeah, they're deployed serving away from home. So it's important to always think about them and what they're going through.
God bless our troops until they all come home. Now, what are some projects or some things that you're working on that you would like to share with the community?
When I was still active duty, okay, I retired as a technical sergeant E6. So as a technical sergeant E6, I was between administrative work and actually out on the field doing air transportation. So I had to take on the role of leading a whole lot of people. Once I got to the VA, you know, after I retired in January 2012, I went to the VA in August of 2012, and you know, for my compensation. So I had to take the time out for me to make sure I was okay, in order to get back to what I did when I was active duty, active reserve, of counseling and looking after veterans and making sure they were okay. So that's part of my DNA, you know, when it came to younger troops, because there's a whole lot of younger veterans out there that are coming back from Iraq and several other places, and they don't know how to map out the compensation part, or the part to get to a VSO, a Veteran Service Officer, Veteran Service Organization, to be able to be properly compensated for their sacrifice. So it's I mean, me being older than them, you know, I learned how to navigate and learn how to navigate through it.
So you're still leading, mentoring the troops at the end of the day.
The thing with the community is just small token of appreciation that people always express. You know, I help you know, senior citizens, you know, around my neighborhood with walking to and from the supermarket, help them across the street, things of that nature. So, you know, if I have something showing that I'm a veteran, they express gratitude for my service. If I don't, we get around to talking. And that's where I reveal that I'm a veteran, and so on and so forth, and they tell me a little bit about it as well. And that's how I met many senior citizens, you know, that didn't have anything, you know, showing that there was a veteran, but they were veterans.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. and you know, there's always this like, I don't want to sound negative when I say this, but there's so many people that try to put themselves in some kind of conformity. You know, they're like, well, I was a reservist, so I'm not really consider myself a veteran, or you know, I wasn't a wartime, so I don't consider myself, I wasn't a grunt. And you know, for me and Devil Dog and others individuals that I've met, you know, you serving your country, putting your hand up and making the oath, that, you know, finishing your mm-hmm. contract, that's what we call a veteran. That's what we're trying to get at, you know, and some people are not going to be that open-minded, but regardless, you got two guys here that's always pushing out there for, hey, sit down, have a meal with us, relax, talk about your story, you know, share, don't share, whatever, it doesn't matter. So, you know, for our capacity, we've always, you know, looked at individuals' service, you know, that's all that matters. Serving our country in a different way, because once you put your hand up, you don't know what's going to happen after that. You know, I want to circle back to something you said earlier, you know, coming back home, retiring. You know, a lot of people always go towards maybe a veteran might have PTSD. Mm-hmm. Well, there's one lesser known that the general population don't know, but we do know. It's readjustment issues, you know.
Absolutely.
So people, you know, individuals like you, veterans, leaders, mentors, coming out and speaking to the ones that just got out, gives us the ability to say, you know, it makes the process a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. You know, for me, it's well known, you know, at the national level. You know, I've always been working towards student veteran homelessness. That's the biggest thing that my platform, all the work that I've done, you know, beginning of when we were known each other. You came out and helped out in many of the projects that we're doing. And you know, for me, I was homeless for a couple months. It wasn't that long; it was 3 months, but I had to suffer. I was like, one day I'm a sergeant in the Marines doing all these big, you know, important things, and next thing I know, I'm struggling to find a job, get food, get back into my own community. And you would think you walk into it, and I was somebody who was prepared. I was like, I got a job lined up, and you know, I know where I'm going to live. I got family in the area. But then when you back into reality, all the scenarios that can happen, like there's no book that's going to give you all the answers. So you need that personal guidance of someone to help out. And I've done more. You know, my work has been more giving, passing voices of individuals like you to the community or other nonprofits, you know, because there's always so many popping up and closing down, so you never know. So I'm always trying to say, well, this is a new organization. Go, you know, come on here, reach out, tell us what you're doing. So that's been, you know, more of my way. And in helping student veterans, because in the end of the day, even though I've been working at this for 10 years, or more than 10 years, student veteran homelessness is still an issue. And there's really, it's too much to do. You know?
I think one of the things that I learned as a PTSD patient, who went through combat trauma, is the fact is as when I started my treatment, okay, you learn how to develop coping skills. You know, like I in my mind I consider it like a MAGCOM on paper.
Okay,
you know what I mean? Like a military MAGCOM on paper. Yeah. So PTSD is the MAGCOM, and then, you know, I break it down to brackets mentally, emotionally, of what coping skills I'm going to use this day, or if I'm going to go to an event, you know, how to think about enjoying my time with fellow veterans and things of that nature. Because I think me and you had spoken briefly about it before, that the issue with veterans leaving the military, whether they're reserve, because reserve is more involved these days in active duty and supporting active duty than 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So what happens is that whether you reserve or active, everything was on the base for you. You don't have to leave the base or the post or the Marine Corps station if you didn't want to, because you had your post exchange, you had your commissary, you had this, you had that, you had all types of recreation, okay? But once you get out, sometimes the disconnect is between the branch, the DOD, and you, okay? How to navigate this thing, this system. So if it wasn't for some of the VSOs, like for example your organization, okay, is very deeply rooted in community. Okay, some of the other organizations, they do different things. You know, they have the funding to run around and take, you know, veterans to different places and stuff like that, so on and so forth. So what the interesting aspect about Devil Dog Incorporated is that when you help the community, okay, and they see you and they see us, you know, different veterans from different backgrounds and, you know, different nationalities, and they get to know us, they say, well, wow, okay, you veterans are helping us now, are helping us civilians in the community.
And at the community level, that's
and that community level, that means a lot. That means a lot to people, because the other disconnect is the fact is that we get, as veterans that served in combat and come back with war trauma, we get ostracized, we get biased, we get treated in a biased manner, and people don't supposedly want to get too close to us or form a friendship. And what they fail to realize is that everybody processes trauma differently. It's like DNA. No one's PTSD is better than the other or worse than the other. But what a whole lot of the public doesn't understand is that there's a difference between a functional veteran with PTSD and a non-functional veteran. I pray for the for the non-functional veterans all the time, because they're sitting up in a ward, in a psych ward, in all VA hospitals because they can't conduct themselves properly. And you know, it's really a shame because they can't see their family whenever they want to, and things of that nature. So. And
when we get at that level, the thing that you and me always try to fight the most is, you know, trying to prevent suicide.
Oh,
you know, that's our main factor. I mean, you met Igor a couple years ago. You know, unfortunately, you know, his demons got to him. Rest in peace, Igor. Once again, there's no simple answer to the solution, but no. You know what we can do is, you know, and I appreciate you sharing so deeply, because you know we need to see that, we need to hear that. It has to be spoken. You know, I believe in trying to end the stigma on saying, you know, I have a condition or I need help. But you know, once we move away from there, that's when those numbers are going to rise. And the elderly, the more senior veterans. And senior citizen veterans are the ones that are affected the most, which a lot of people don't know, because they reach at that level where, let's say, just one random example, you have a veteran that's on a fixed budget, and all of a sudden the housing market changes. He's out of that market. He makes a little too much to qualify for, you know, local benefits, but he's never been, let's say, receiving public assistance. So now, where are you going to go in that area? Maybe your family is no longer around. Those are one of the hardest cases that I have to see as a case manager. You know, and then on the other side of the spectrum is, let's say, if we circle back to the younger veterans coming out, you know, and which happened to me, was you think everything's going to be there for you. You know, if you came in at 18 into the military, you had, you know, once again, your doctors, your medical, your insurance, everything's covered. You have food. You knew where to go. If somebody's telling you what time to get up, well, where to go to work. You know you're going to be moved all around here and there. And then all of a sudden, I mean, I don't want to sound negative, but you're kind of institutionalized into that, you know, type of lifestyle. And then, boom, you're on your own.
I think one of the biggest things I learned through my treatment for PTSD is that one of the primary big cultures in this United States is the military culture. Okay, even though we, when you're talking about, you know, the population in the United States, you know, we garner no more than 2-3% of the total population, but at the same time, we are the ones who served. We are the ones who served our country, and you know, most of us did it honorably and distinguishedly, you know. And you know what a whole lot of the public fails to understand is that when it comes to being a first responder, military first responder, any type of first responder, was firemen, policemen, stuff like that. We're all human. We all have human emotions, and we all, some of us, after years of being in that particular first responder job, okay, get to realize this is not for me. So what they do is they, instead of seeking help to try to get out of the position, they do the wrong things. I mean, I explain to people all the time, we have problems with members in the military, Air Force, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, that screwed up and they're serving time in jail, in prison. You know what I mean? Everybody has them because we're all human. You know, one of the biggest focal points, main point, primary point is to you know, have compassion and consideration for one another. You know what I mean? There's so many different ways. Like, I want to go back to the point of how you exemplify being a Marine Corps veteran. Everybody honors their service in a different way. Everybody expresses their sacrifice in a different way. Some more than others, you know what I mean, and some less. But that doesn't mean that you're diminishing or you're dishonoring your sacrifice by not wearing something from the Marine Corps every day. You know, so it's different for me because I'm fourth generation military. Okay, my grandfather served in World War I. My father's father.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, my father served in World War II. He was a Marine Corps veteran. 4th Marine, 6th Marine Division, Echo Company. He was probably, I think, the only Hispanic, the only one amongst Irish and Italian guys, about 300 soldiers in the company. And of course, my brother served in Vietnam with the 82nd Airborne, you know, and of course I served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Between all three of us, each one of them served 3 years, totaling 9 years, and my 32 years, so 41 years between us of service to the country. So it's a real, it's a thing that, you know, I kind of have to step back and imagine, wow, we served in all major wars, you know, that the U.S. Was involved in. And then you get to realize that some of these conflicts weren't our conflicts, but were conflicts that supposedly friendly countries needed us. You know what I mean? So it's like, just to let you know, I had a very disciplined childhood being the son of a Marine Corps veteran.
Gotcha. I can only imagine, you know. For me, you know, I don't have too much of a patriotic story before joining the military. I just one day bumped into a recruiter, said hello. He said, "Want to join?" I was like, "Sure." Right after wrestling practice, and that was it. I didn't need the sales pitch. I didn't need the education, the money.
Right.
You know, I'm ready to go.
Okay.
You know, and I'm sure he was drooling when he saw wrestler who was, you know, highly educated, volunteer work, and, you know, so he did good on that part. You know, but you know, I'm glad you shared that part of your background and your history, because once again I didn't know that. So now, I mean, what do you see yourself going in the future in these next couple of years?
Well, in the future, I'm eventually, you know, one of the things I'm doing is I'm relocating. You know, I'm relocating down south. Okay, and two of the reasons for relocation down south is not only because the weather's warmer, but it helps with my arthritis, with not having as much cold as up here in the East Coast. Okay, and for two is the PTSD factor. You know, New York is terribly congested. You know, it's not for everybody who is a PTSD patient. Some can endure, you know, and some can't. And once I get down there, I'm going to get more involved in different activities for veterans. One of the things that my psychologist had asked me to do, you know, had counseled me to get, is a PTSD service dog. So I'm eventually going to get a dog, a friend to be with, to help me, you know, deal with the challenges in public and stuff like that. You know, because it's an important part. You know what I mean? And, you know, sometimes when I get my service dog, it could be everything from, you know, from driving erratic to not driving erratic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so those service dogs mean everything. You know?
And just for the public to know, there are organizations that help veterans receive service dog. I know the VA hospital, the Veterans Affairs Hospital, has programs to help with the service animals as well. It's very restricted and very low in numbers, but it's a program in there as well. And I'm glad you brought up the part about moving and because of your situation. Now, what a lot of people, veterans do know this, but in military, but a lot of people may not know this. But the VA is a national organization, so there's VA hospitals all over the world.
Yeah.
I know there's one in Vietnam. I'm sure there's others in other places around the world. Like, are you planning to move like near the local VA hospital within that general radius, something like that?
Yeah, I'm already registered in the system for the Lake Nona Orlando VA Hospital, which is south of Orlando, approximately 25 miles. So I hope to live, I'm looking at moving south of Orlando, close to the Lake Nona VA Hospital, but not too close. You know, I've averaged it, you know, what it takes me to get from where I live now to the Bronx VA, 25 minutes, you know, 25, 30 minutes driving. more or less, it's a system down there that it incorporates, for example, I participate in many research studies here in the Bronx VA, and they have a building all to itself where you participate in research studies, okay? And then, the hospital is another building, and there's a whole lot of, when you get to the front gate to go to your appointment, you have a VA police officer there, and then he asks you for ID. It's not like in some places where you just walk into the building. So the first time I went there, when that happened, that it triggered me a little bit to being back in active duty. But the fact of the matter is that I feel comfortable in that type of environment. I want to be asked for my identification. I want to prove who I am.
Right, for those that don't know, the VA is a federal institution. That's why there's security and they have their own police system, et cetera, which are federal officers, I believe. Now, a good point of reference is the VA hospital. Mm-hmm. So the Bronx VA hospital is unique because they have, or at least in New York, it's kind of unique. The main hospital normally is all medical and everything's in one area. And, there's a lot of services going on, and obviously you've gone through them. I don't want to go too much into depth, but for anybody that's maybe wanting to get some information on you or guidance or maybe reach out to you, how would they go about doing that?
I belong to, I have a page on different apps, different social media apps.
Release one of them if you don't mind.
Facebook, Daniel Jorge. I have a picture, I think, of, as a matter of fact, I have a picture of a Palestinian and Jewish kid.
Okay.
Embracing.
Oh, gotcha. And we'll be happy to share the link for the videos out there.
Yes.
For those out there, if you'd be interested in joining Vet Talk, please email me at ceo@devildogusa.org. And as always, God bless America.